Welcome to the Great Man Within podcast. Every episode is designed to help you discover and live the great man within you. January 1st, 2021, you made it. You did it. You successfully completed the gauntlet that was 2020. And maybe you've got some battle scars, but here you are. And I'd like to welcome you to the first day of the best year of your life. Do you realize that 2021 holds the potential to be the most meaningful, fulfilling, and prosperous year of your life if you choose it to be so, if you claim it? Because here's the reality, guys. Having the most meaningful, prosperous, and fulfilling year of your life is not about external achievements. It's not about the rest of the world looking the way that you want it to, because 2020 showed us in no unequivocal terms that we have little control, zero control in most cases, about the way the external world looks. But we do have control over our inner worlds, how we choose to respond to the outside world around us, the meaning that we make. Viktor Frankl said, when you can no longer change the outside world, we are forced to change ourselves internally. And so today, I want to share with you one of my favorite books, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And the one subset of drift that you will absolutely face over the course of this year that will stand in the way of you living that most meaningful, fulfilling, and prosperous year of your life. And I'll dive into that in a few moments. But before we do that, I want to acknowledge a great man who showed up as such a source of inspiration to our community over this last year. A man who chose to make 2020 the most meaningful, fulfilling, and prosperous year of his life at the beginning of the year. And even amidst a global pandemic that was very painful and frightening and scary for him and his family, chose to show up every single day because of his inner game and a daily devotion to practices that ensured him living his purpose. This man, my boy, Michael Young. Michael Young is a two-time cancer survivor, 54 years of age, who at the beginning of 2020 decided that he was going to raise $25,000 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and even more impressively, doing so by jumping rope 1 million times, 1 million skips over the calendar year of 2020. Let me break this down for you guys. He chose to skip 300 of the 365 days of last year, which is basically 6 out of 7 days a week, most weeks. And on those 300 days that he was jumping rope, he jumped rope 3,333 times. Now think about the dedication, the devotion, the carving out the physical time to just doing the skips, which took, in some cases, 22 to 30 minutes per day, depending on how he felt. 22, 30 minutes a day for 300 of those 365 days, let alone the emotional and mental and spiritual energy committed to making sure that his mind and his body were ready to do that. The cooling down, the warming up, the cooling down, the stretching, the icing, right? When his schedule got crazy, when he traveled, whatever it was, he made sure that he showed up every single day. And here's one of the things that I'm most impressed by. For about 10 or 11 months of last year, there was very little fanfare about what Michael was doing. Outside of his family and his community in the Great Man Mastermind, I saw Michael posting regularly on Instagram. He had a modest following. Certainly nothing so enthusiastic that was viral or, going crazy. There wasn't a whole deluge of followers that were, jumping on his bandwagon. For about 10 or 11 months, it was without fanfare. And I believe by December 1st of 2020, he'd only reached about half of his financial goal. And yet Michael showed up every single day and continued to do it, even when he faced resistance. And then something funny happened. One of the local television stations picked up on Michael's inspiring story and decided to film a segment where they came out did a 2 or 3 minute, beautifully documented, story of what Michael's journey was over the past 11 months. And when it went live, it created such an enthusiastic response that Michael ended up, I think, hitting about $9,000 or $10,000 worth of additional support in a couple weeks period of time. And as of last night, December 31st, 2020, Michael crossed the finish line of his 1 million skips, and I believe hit his $25,000 mark of support. Now, guys, think about how he just textbook nailed living a life of purpose by showing up on the daily with a series of practices that ensured that he was going to live the most meaningful, fulfilling, and prosperous year of his life. He hasn't even fully digested or metabolized what last year has meant to him, because he's got to stop that practice now, let some dust settle, and then really feel into what he has learned. But he chose that path. He made it be. Now, I've written in my book On Purpose Leadership that there's the purpose pyramid. At the top of your pyramid is that sense of purpose, that meaning and fulfillment, which can only be experienced in the here and now. Your purpose is not something off in the future. Your purpose doesn't happen in the attainment of a goal. It happens here and now by feeling fully engaged in what you're doing and getting your greatest energy from that which you are doing. And in order to feel that, at the bottom of your pyramid, you have to have a series of practices that put you there every single day. For Michael, his practice was jumping rope. For other men, it's mindfulness and meditation. For other men, it's playing guitar. For other men, it's writing in your journal and reflecting. For other men, it's working out your body, right? For other men, it's building your business from intentionality every single day. What are your practices, your daily practices that support you living your purpose? And before we wrap this episode today, at the end of this episode, I will invite you into a series of practices that the men in our community are doing for the next 31 days through the Mentally Tougher Man Challenge. And I'll hit that before we leave. But guys, I want to remind you that your number one guide on this journey to living your most meaningful and fulfilling, prosperous year of your life is your great man within. Your great man within is the man who's the fully potentialized version of yourself. He is purpose embodied, right? He's this entity inside of you that knows the path that you want to walk. He's the one who's courageous when you feel weak. He's the one who's bold when everyone else is shrinking. He's the one in your life that has shown up and guided you along the way even when you felt lost. I'm not the one who came up with this concept. It's what we've heard about in hero stories throughout our entire lives. It's what authors like Napoleon Hill call the other self, that part of you that has access to infinite intelligence greater than you, tapping into God, tapping into wisdom beyond yourself. It's what Dr. Wayne Dyer calls the invisible self. And it's what Stephen Pressfield, the author of The War of Art, one of the 15 most influential books of my life, calls the unlived life within you. And I want to read a few passages about the book, or from the book, The War of Art, because I want to highlight one of the key components of drift that you will face most likely today, tomorrow, and every single day for these next 365 days that will take you off the path of you living your great man and living that sense of purpose on the daily basis. And here's what he has to say. Most of us have two lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. And between the two stands resistance. Resistance with a capital R. Have you ever brought home a treadmill and let it gather dust in the attic? Ever quit a diet, a course of yoga, a meditation practice? Have you ever bailed out on a call to embark upon a spiritual practice? Have you ever bailed out on a call to dedicate yourself on a humanitarian calling or to commit your life to the service of others? Have you ever wanted to be a mother, a doctor, an advocate for the weak and helpless, to run for office, crusade for the planet, campaign for world peace, or to preserve the environment? Late at night, have you ever experienced a vision of the person you might become, the work you could accomplish, the realized being you were meant to be? Are you a writer who doesn't write? A painter who doesn't paint? An entrepreneur who never starts a venture? Then you know what resistance is. So, gentlemen, resistance is this thing that stands between you and the unlived life within you, the you and the great man within you, the you that is listening to this episode, and the other self, as Napoleon Hill would call it, or the invisible self, as Wayne Dyer would call it. In between the two of who you are today and the fully potentialized version of your great man stands resistance. I certainly know what resistance looks like in my life in the many forms that it takes. That fear of criticism, the fear of going after 100% of what it is that I want because I may fail, and instead choosing to play smaller games in my life, to only go after the things I know I can get. I have played those games for many years of my life because I feared resistance to those things that, may cause my inner world pain. Stephen Pressfield asks the question, how many of us have become drunks and drug addicts, developed tumors and neuroses, succumbed to painkillers, gossip, and compulsive cell phone use simply because we don't do that thing in our hearts our inner genius is telling us to do? Man, I want to read that again because it's so powerful. How many of us have become drunks and drug addicts, developed tumors and neuroses, succumbed to painkillers, gossip, and compulsive cell phone use simply because we don't do that thing in our hearts our inner genius is telling us to do? Your great man within you can be a son of a bitch when you are going off the path, when you are succumbing to compulsive behaviors or emotional eating or oversexing or not sleeping or compulsively working, because he's tapping at you all the time telling you you're off the path. And I know that he's shown up in the form of, for me, anxiety, panic attacks of lesser degrees. I haven't had a full-fledged panic attack, but I know there are men in our communities who have had panic attacks. He can show up with a 2x4 or hitting you with a Mack truck to wake us up, to wake you up to where you are resisting that deeper calling in your life. And Stephen Pressfield has a greatest hit list of where resistance shows up. And I want to read these to you because I think they're quite illuminating and also funny. He calls it Resistance's Greatest Hits. The following is a list in no particular order of those activities that most commonly elicit resistance. Number 1, and how many of these are there? There's 11 of these. Number 1, the pursuit of any calling in writing, painting, music, film, dance, or any creative art, however marginal or unconventional. Number 2, the launching of any entrepreneurial venture or enterprise for profit or otherwise. Number 3 of Resistance's Greatest Hits, any diet or health regimen. Number 4, any program of spiritual advancement. I certainly know that. Number 5, any activity whose aim is tighter abdominals. Any activity whose aim is tighter abdominals is one of Resistance's Greatest Hits. Number 6, any course or program designed to overcome an unwholesome habit or addiction. Truth to me. Number 7, education of every kind, because that requires us to give up on a former way of believing or living. Number 8, any act of political, moral, or ethical courage, including the decision to change for the better some unworthy pattern of thought or conduct in ourselves. Number 9, the undertaking of any enterprise or endeavor whose aim is to help others. Number 10, any act that entails commitment of the heart, the decision to get married, to have a child, to weather a rocky patch in a relationship. And number 11, the taking of any principled stand in the face of adversity. In other words, any act that rejects immediate gratification in favor of long-term growth, health, or integrity. Or expressed another way, any act that derives from our higher nature, or your great man, instead of our lower nature. Any of these will elicit resistance. Guys, if you are embarking upon and truly embarking upon living the best year of your life, the most meaningful, fulfilling, and prosperous year of your life. It's going to require you to break from what's easy, what's comfortable, what your habits have allowed you to do, whatever is the easiest path in the present moment. These are the things that call us closer to resistance instead of living the great man within us. And like Michael Young showed up every single day in pursuit of his 1 million jump rope skips to raise $25,000 for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and to raise awareness around cancer, it comes with a daily commitment to practices that call you forward. That's one of the primary reasons why we are starting the first 31 days of January as a collection, as a unit, as a community of great men doing this mentally tougher man challenge. For the first 31 days of this year, including today, where we did a 15-second cold shower, we are dedicating daily practices to expanding our mental and emotional capacity so that we can weather any storm, show up with integrity in the face of adversity, to avoid collapsing when things get tough, and to become more trustworthy, capable men that allow us to feel proud of how we're showing up in our lives. It's not always easy, right? So for the next 31 days, every day you're going to be emailed or text messaged a challenge around meditation, breath work, reading a spiritual text, or something about productivity or purpose, journaling about your experiences, sharing your experiences with others, and doing cold showers or doing push-ups is one of the big exercises with intentionality and focus. Every single day for 31 days, you will be invited to participate in a challenge and to share that, your wins, your losses, your falling off the wagons and coming back on the wagons with the community of men in the Facebook group. So if you are truly committed to living the greatest version of yourself this year, and if you truly believe that day number 1 today is the first day of the best year of your life because you are going to create it and make it so, then you need to take inspired action every single day to ensure its execution and manifestation in your life. I've linked in the show notes registration for the Mentally Tougher Man Challenge so you can join over 200 men around the world who are going to be participating in these 31 days of January. And I'm also linked the access to the Facebook group for men, the Great Man Within podcast Facebook group. Let me leave you with one final piece of wisdom from Stephen Pressfield in The War of Art about resistance. We can navigate our lives by resistance, letting it guide us to that calling or action that we must follow before all others. The more important a call or action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we will feel toward pursuing it. And what I believe Pressfield is saying here is that instead of letting resistance stop you from going after the thing that you want, resistance becomes your compass to navigate your life by. The greater the resistance, the greater the calling. That is your great man within telling you that there is something important for you to move towards. And when you feel that resistance, it's time to step forward and ask your great man, what is it that's here for me that can bring me closer to my purpose and living the most meaningful, fulfilling, and prosperous year of my life?